Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you for splashing on my screen. Whatever. It's for the show.
Sisters.
Yeah, we're having a very cheers, clink, sisters kind of day. Yeah.
Wow, Rufus looks really different with that haircut.
Right? I have a special guest today.
Oh.
This is Echo.
Oh, look at
Hello, sweetie.
Oh, she's a cutie. Yeah, Rufus did always want a friend, so.
He did, although
Is he second guessing it? Is he second guessing having a doggy sibling? Yeah, he is, totally. He's like, wait a minute, my spot was stolen.
I keep trying to get him up here, but he's Rufus. He's a cat in dog clothing, so he won't do anything unless he wants to.
Oh.
Sure.
So no fun sibling rivalry.
Rufus is such a boy's dog, yeah.
Yeah, he prefers men, but Echo definitely likes me better, so it works out. Yeah.
Boy dog, girl dog. Well, speaking of boys and girls, welcome to Your No Fun Anymore, the podcast where we deal with our nostalgia. I'm Randall.
I'm Dana.
I'm Bryce.
I'm Alexandra. And I'm Helen.
And today we are diving headfirst into a Chipmunk Adventure.
What was this fucking movie, guys? What was this?
David Seville is going on a trip to Europe, and he's not taking the Chipmunks.
Please, take me with you, Dave.
Dave has nothing to worry about. Or does he?
We have people waiting around the world for $5 million in diamonds, and we can't get anyone to deliver them.
Or can they?
We're on our way around the world.
From the deepest sea to the darkest jungle to the desert sand.
I will make her one of my wives. Dream on, Tiny Tim.
To the frozen plains of Antarctica. Join the Chipmunks and the Chipettes as they take off on an action-packed musical adventure around the world.
We're the hottest act in rock and roll. All right, Mr. Popularity. How much you wanna bet we can out-rock and roll you? We've got to keep these two apart.
The Chipmunk Adventure starts Friday at a theater near you.
Content warning. This selected film may contain scenes depicting the following: attempted murder, child endangerment, absurd amounts of cultural insensitivity, excessive smoking, international criminal activities, gratuitous amounts of chipmunk underwear, implied drinking, actual drinking, inordinately short clothing for children and adults, and emotionally manipulative use of a penguin. And now, back to your regularly scheduled podcast.
Okay, so just to clarify, since none of us actually had a copy of this, and my torrent foo is not what it used to be, we managed to piece together roughly the whole film via a series of random uploaded sequences, some in French, on YouTube.
We watched this movie, and then we had to watch the parts that we missed in the French translation.
You watch the French version?
We did too. Alex did. Alex watched the French version. I, out of principle,
But you had to watch the French version because
he kind of saw them. Dana,
watched
I
them.
don't think anything would have made this movie make sense.
It wasn't about making sense. It was about some of the most offensive parts
saw
are
the
in
shorty
French
shorts.
version.
She did see some of the
Oh,
offensive
the shorty
bits.
shorts.
Yeah.
Oh god, the always naked around each other siblings?
Yeah.
I kind of wanted that guy's robe, though. I'm not even going to lie.
Yeah, if anybody's going to pull it off, you are, Randall.
I was like, oh, that's like a whole cheek just showing, buddy.
Alex, do you speak French, or were you reading the terrible, terrible subtitles too?
I do speak French, but not that well. And I had it on mute and just watched it for the imagery because that's what it was for. And she would flash things to me on her phone and be like, what is this?
The captions were
atrocious.
So bad.
They didn't let us do English captions. They only had French captions.
No, you had French, and then you had to ask them to translate the French to.
I tried, but I think it doesn't let
on
you
the
do
desktop,
it on the phone.
it allows that. But I wish I could have screenshot some of those because it was some of the best nonsense I've ever seen.
Oh, when we get round to posting on the site, we'll definitely do some screenshots because that.
The part that I loved about it is that I've seen that movie so many times. I didn't need the captions in French or English.
I know. I loved getting this stream from you, which was like a very detailed. This is the order you need to watch it. This is how you do.
Well, how else is it going to make sense?
when they're escaping Egypt to return the baby penguin. Which reading with absolutely no context, never having seen this movie, was a trip.
Yeah. Well, like Dana typing all of that out and then having you two say, we're going to wing it.
And then within 10 seconds of watching it, I was like, oh my God, this movie is that crazy. Like, it wasn't just Dana being weird on text. I'll save my take on how I feel about watching this movie again.
We'll get to that. Yeah.
Tell us.
Give us some context.
Tell us the little we don't already know about 1987.
Ground us as much as possible, Randall.
Yeah.
I know that's impossible.
The year is 1987. Again, since we are talking about Chipmunks, it's hard to avoid that this is a revival that started in the 80s to actually much success. So fellow 60s music alums, the Monkees, released their first new studio album in over 17 years, Pool It, based on their recent resurgence in popularity. They had started to get a lot of airplay of their old reruns, and they actually launched a world tour. And their 87 tour would actually be one of the most popular shows that year in the United States. Teddy Seymour becomes the first black man to circumnavigate the globe in his 35-foot vessel, Love Song, only making 12 stops over this months-long journey and only having a budget of $5,200.
What?
Yeah, he started from the Virgin Islands and then ended up going back there. The last stretch going across the Atlantic from the Strait of Gibraltar to get back to the Virgin Islands, he only had $38 worth of food.
But was he smuggling diamonds?
No, not to my knowledge. He actually seems like a very soft-spoken individual and wrote about it in his diaries. He is actually only the 161st person at that moment to make the global journey solo. In other traveling news, teenager Matthias Russ, with less than 50 hours flight time experience, penetrates the Iron Curtain by flying a Cessna Skyhawk, which is one of those little single-engine prop planes, from Helsinki into the heart of the Soviet Union, landing just outside of Red Square. This would
How did he get shot down or something?
That was the question that would trigger massive series of dismissals from the highest ranks of the Soviet military, and also kind of emboldened Gorbachev at the time to push forward on a lot of his reforms. He would spend 14 months in prison before being pardoned and released.
Wow.
Oh, we got some German highlights, since I feel that's probably... Do we want the good one or the bad one first?
Always the bad one first.
Always the bad one
Okay.
first.
The Butcher of Lyon, Gestapo torturer, murderer, and later American anti-leftist spook Klaus Barbie is finally put on trial for his extensive, horrific war crimes and general crimes against humanity, having fled to Bolivia with the help of the United States intelligence agencies. It took decades to finally extradite him, but he was sentenced to life in prison this year. And in the good news, Claudia Kohn-Kilsch, the member of the dominating tennis doubles team known as the Twin Towers, with her teammate Helena Sukova. Both are over 6'2". They win their second career Grand Slam and the first Wimbledon title that she would win, defeating American Betsy Nagelson and Australian Liv Smiley in 2 straight sets. And in the United States, for the first time, live models were used in television ads for bras.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, really?
Yep.
So they only had fake models or like mannequins?
Yeah. Well, at that time, it was all mannequins on television. Like somebody would take their shirt off and it would be a mannequin. The Playtex Bra Cross Your Heart ad series broke new ground by showing actual humans and not mannequins wearing their products. Edward H. Meyer, the chairman of the New York-based Gray Advertising Company, said, quote, "We had a whole generation of kids who grew up thinking that when a woman took off her blouse, she turned into a mannequin." All we're trying to do is get advertising brought up to the same standards as media that surrounds it. He was mentioning the fact that bikinis were regularly on television. This is after the 70s. So this has been a standard for European advertisements for years, but America gonna America, and anything to do with women has to be incredibly scrutinized and bizarrely sexualized. Hey, speaking of bizarrely sexualized.
Chipettes.
Memorial Day weekend, the Chipmunk Adventure opens, getting absolutely crushed by the big-time sequel Beverly Hills Cop 2, newcomer Ernest Goes to Camp, and even Ishtar.
Wow.
In its third week, I believe, at that point. It pulled barely over 2 million in 3 days. Total grosses in its short-lived theatrical release would be $6.8 million. But the Chipmunks were far from done, as their rush to home video release in less than a year yielded massive success. It would be reissued another 2 times on VHS, twice on DVD, and just recently in 2014 on Blu-ray, which makes me wonder, why are there no physical fucking copies
Why
of this
is it
thing?
so hard to find?
$100.
It was $100 when we looked it up online. No, we did not pay that. We found it on YouTube. But come on now.
I'm pretty sure it's so politically incorrect at this point that they demanded it be pulled from the rotation.
It's somehow even more racist than the Small World ride.
That was exactly the comparison I was going to make. It is more racist
that reminds
than
me.
The Small World, and that's really hard to do.
That was my alternate title for this, which is It's a Shrill World After All.
Yeah, there.
Yeah. Or, Klaus and Claudia's Bogus Journey.
Nice.
I honestly, because I did not realize this until looking up a lot of this stuff. The Chipmunk franchise is franchise in name only. This is a truly family production.
Yeah. I was reading about it. Ross Bagdasarian made the first series in the 60s, and then his son made this series and acted in it. And was the voices, right? And wrote
continues to act in
and
it.
the dad was the voice in the originals.
Yep.
So I
And
think
his
his wife did the Chipettes, right?
Yep. She invented the Chipettes along with her husband for the television series. Actually, it came out with the album beforehand, because after his father's death in 1972, they kind of picked up the mantle, and then by the late 70s and early 80s had been re-releasing and re-recording Chipmunk songs. Like, I think it started with Chipmunk Punk.
Nice. Yes.
I owned the Chipmunks Sing the Movies, and I learned most of the songs on that album from the Chipmunks. So
I remember loving the Chipmunks.
Yeah. I watched them all the time. After we watched this movie, I had to listen to the Chipmunk cover of Betty Davis Eyes, which is the weirdest.
Everything they did was weird.
Yeah.
I would like to share that I actually gave money to that box office total. I saw it in the theaters.
No.
Yes. And I have seen this movie. I don't even know how many times I've seen this movie, but enough that I can still recite it.
Yeah. That happened to me.
Last time I watched it.
That happened to me. I have not seen this thing probably since I was maybe 12.
Yep.
And there was a point about 20 minutes into this movie where my brain just clicked and I started actually saying things with the movie again. And I don't know why. It shocked me. It was like, oh my God, I know this.
It imprinted.
I was absentmindedly singing the songs with them that have just been living in the back of my brain for the past 25 years without knowing it.
Yeah, this has imprinted somewhere deep inside both of you.
I remember watching it a few times when I was a kid, but not clearly to the point
Never
of this
saw it.
impression.
100% never saw it. Never heard of it. We definitely watched the TV show because I remembered that, funny woman, the flighty old lady marm kind of
Mrs. Miller.
Yeah.
Mrs. Miller, who was the Chipettes guardian. I remembered her, and I'm assuming she kind of was like creative for the show. Never. And I remember watching a Chipmunks holiday movie.
Yeah.
Maybe.
There was one that came out before the show. It was made for TV.
Never seen this movie. Never even knew it existed. Kind of wish I didn't know it existed, honestly.
Oh, it's gorgeous though. Oh my God.
It's so crazy.
I still like the things that hit the pleasure center of my brain when I used to watch this as a kid still activate. Like when I was watching them play the video game at the beginning with the balloons.
Oh yeah.
It's like that game still looks fun. I still want to play that game.
I was watching that and I was like, why are they putting a video game in a cartoon? Also,
I'm a
little concerned now for you two guys that maybe you're like some Manchurian candidates that are about to go because I honestly think this film is like grooming children for like super sexualized relationships.
Absolutely is, but I think this is one of those movies that if you saw it at the right time, it just hits
in your brain.
Nobody's business.
Yeah.
I don't understand why. Okay, the Chipettes overly sexualized. Why we have to see their underwear so much?
Also,
why are we constantly getting peeks of their underwear?
Why are they wearing outfits and the Chipmunks are wearing like prototype Snuggies?
Yes. Why are they so 80s? Like they're the most 80s things ever.
The Chipmunks were created in the 60s and the Chipettes were the 80s.
That's
right.
The
Chipettes were created for us.
Yeah, right. But the Chipmunks are still supposed to be like the coolest, hippest rock band of the time, but wearing
He's got that
Snuggies?
swagger with the hat,
Sure.
you know.
Like Helen said earlier, it's the grooming aspect. Like the
Yeah.
way the girls were dressed, it just like,
Well, and
are
the
you
whole
grooming
attitude-
little girls to dress this
There was a
way?
very John Benet Ramsey kind
Yes.
of like
Oh
feel
yeah,
to them.
or when she's dealing with the sheik and she's like, "Is he rich? How rich? What happened to like gold and rubies as a gift?" Like it was all just really too adult for.
And again, with the girls, like they're always like draped on things.
Yeah.
You know, they're
When-
always kind of like in these little poses, these like
when
little
they're
cheesecake
when they're in
poses.
the balloon and they're starting to sing the song to the penguin.
No
What's her
joke.
name?
Mother song.
I thought she was gonna nurse that penguin.
But also like Jeanette just is like draped on the side of the balloon and like looking really seductive for no reason.
She wasn't
Because she's
seducing
with her
anyone. Just
siblings.
her and her sisters in the balloon. That's
Yeah,
it.
they're just hanging out.
Well, as
you know?
Claudia and Klaus have shown us, that sibling relationships don't mean anything in this world.
Oh my
True.
God, they
and
were
so. I had to ask Helen at one point: are they siblings or are they a couple?
Yeah, they introduced themselves as siblings right at the very beginning. They established that very carefully.
Yeah, I don't know. That's so I kind of agree with like Dana on this. It's like there is a certain age that this movie kind of clicks, and if you go above it, it just won't.
Right.
And I think that age is probably like 11 or 12.
Mhm.
Anything above that, probably not. But like when I saw this when I was probably, I want to say 9, that's that time where like, oh yeah, it's fun.
Mhm.
You don't care that it's bonkers and it makes no sense. I'm kind of amused by the overtly hedonistically evil villains in this.
Yeah.
Oh, so evil.
Oh,
So transparently evil.
Sophie. Sophie's
Yeah.
so
Sophie is
cute
adorable.
and pampered.
And there's a review that came out around this time which had mentioned the fact that these villains seem way more comfortable in something out of like Ralph Bashki or Don Bluth
Totally.
than they do, which is funny because this was made on such a, I mean, they funded it themselves. Like, so when Ross Bagdasarian Jr. and his wife, Janice Carmen, they used the money from the wildly successful Chipmunks reboot that they did back in the 80s, which had been on at that point for probably 5 years. And if you go back and look at the animation style from there, it is just disgustingly cheap and bad.
Yeah.
So when you look at this, it's amazing the talent that they pulled to get this done due to the crunch time, because they originally were supposed to release it in the last quarter of 86, but pushed it to May. They had to actually deliver on April 20th to get the prints ready. And they were still making huge cuts down to the line. They actually got some amazing talent. It's basically a murderer's row of animation talent, not all from Disney, also from Don Bluth, also from Ralph Bashki, all over the place. The guys I got from Disney were people like Dan Haskett. This guy was one of the young guys that was trained under the original Disney animators. He was the character design for Belle and Beauty and the Beast. He did Ariel from The Little Mermaid. So like these guys have like some major bona fides. Glenn Keane, the son of Bob Keane, who does Family Circus.
Mm.
He was also part of the Disney animator team where he did Aladdin, Pocahontas, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast. So basically everything in the Disney Renaissance. Yeah. David Prooksma, who also does like character designs. He got his start actually as an assistant editor on the Black Cauldron and then stuck with Disney. He's one of the few that actually did survive, getting let go. But they had a whole bunch of these guys coming in. I think that's the reason why you see such really bizarre styles and characters that come out of this, because you're getting it from all over the place. Like it's a mishmash of,
And it feels like a mishmash. It feels like a Chipmunk movie with Disney locations and Don Bluth bad guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like they were all going through Epcot Center.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anybody who wasn't a chipmunk or a child were so bodily exaggerated that it bordered on like body horror.
Yeah. In order to finish this thing, there's some old stills from the website, which is now pulled down, unfortunately, because they reset it for the new movies, which these two are still working on and still like producers and actors in. It's kind of amazing. They originally had slated a whole bunch of these locations, but had to scale it way back. And I believe Janice Carmen was pregnant at the time when they were doing this movie. Well, I'm going to paraphrase, but they basically said that they sent away for animators in more countries than the movie actually took place in. Despite a lot of the, horribly horribly culturally insensitive is the
Horribly.
nicest way I could put that.
Yeah.
It's downright racist.
It's when they're in like Polynesia, South Pacific, wherever they are.
Yep.
That is offensively racist.
No, you didn't even see the offensive part, Helen. You missed
Also,
it.
how did Asia cease to exist in this movie?
The balloons popped.
No, there were actual parts of this. There is a deleted scene that was finished but could not make it because they couldn't meld the other pieces together, where one team ends up on the southern side and Alvin and the team end up getting dropped into Russia. And there's like stills online where it's like,
I've seen that with the hats, the Russian hats.
the Russian hats, and then there's a soldier, there's dogs with guns, and a soldier with a big like hammered sickle in black leather. And yeah, it's pretty insane. I'm like, yeah, probably for the best that you cut that.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that they didn't like go to Japan and China, because that would have been painful.
But also, they were flying around in 30 days. I'm not sure how they got to all of the places they did in 30 days.
In a hot air balloon?
With the detour to Antarctica.
With the detour to Antarctica, and the fact that they never teach them how to fly the balloons. They just know.
They don't.
I suppose it's fair because they're talking chipmunks, so perhaps they just...
Also, when do they go through scuba diving training?
They don't.
Yeah.
Oh, I figured they just knew
They
that.
said they'd never done it before.
Right.
Doesn't everybody just instinctually know how to scuba dive?
Was the TV show this crazy? I don't remember the TV
Well, the
show.
TV
No.
show, the first episode of the TV show did guest star Mr. T. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say yes.
It had moments, but it was mostly like guest stars. Plus, the animation was so cheap. Like the scope of this film is insane.
Mhm.
Any normal person would have looked at these two, this husband and wife team, and gone, "What are you talking about?" There are some unconfirmed rumors that they did hire another director, and the guy was like, "I can't handle this," and just walked off the project after a few months. So Janice had picked it up and actually finished it along with acting and producing and directing.
I mean, they must have written that script like in no time flat, though, because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
It's very television. I think that's what Roger Ebert's review of this actually said. It's very Saturday morning cartoon, which is fitting because it is a Saturday morning
I mean,
cartoon.
and it was only like an hour or something. Like it wasn't even that long. It was like
77 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
And we missed maybe...
There were about
15
15
minutes of
minutes
it,
lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had ended up rewatching it because I
Why?
just I
Racist
really
face.
like the style and the
It's just like
exaggerated.
the center.
Yeah.
So as we were watching it, I kept pointing out the terribly, terribly racist things. And Randall's like,
Yep.
no, it's not that bad.
Oh my
God,
God.
Randall. It is.
I was actually, no, there's some things where I understand why Randall's saying that. Like in Mexico, I remembered it being worse. I remembered Mexico being much more racist than Mexico actually.
Still pretty
Are
bad.
you thinking of the Three Amigos with the Disney birds with Donald Duck?
The Three Caballeros.
Yeah.
So I think I was mixing those up. I will say that Egypt and whatever Polynesian island they land on were even more racist than I rememred them.
Yeah, Egypt was bad.
Yeah, Egypt was bad. When they're
Polynesian was the worst. You didn't watch the whole Polynesian thing if you didn't watch the French version, but man, is that offensive.
yeah, no, it's bad.
Holy crap.
When they're in Greece, it's not too bad, but it was
Except
just like
all the women.
Except all the women.
cartels of women. Yeah.
But yeah, and then also when they're ordering the food, I was like, that's not Greek food.
Couscous isn't Greek.
But my couscous.
It's like couscous is definitely not Greek.
Theodore orders something in I think every country that they go to.
Everything he ordered was not Greek. I was like,
No,
this is
no.
not food we would have, especially in a car. You want a gyro? You maybe want some like souvlaki?
He was just hungry. He didn't care what he was ordering. He just wanted food.
I know.
Yeah.
I just there's that
He's not
shot
hungry.
of this poor monkey trying to throw Theodore the banana, and he's like, "Oh no, it's right there." It's like things like that. I absolutely remember and love.
I always identified with Theodore.
And that's the thing. There are moments that are still really funny. Like even though I used to, when I was a kid, walk around doing an impression of the Egyptian prince going,
Nancy
"He
Cartwright.
called me a twit-up." I know it's Bart Simpson, which I totally hadn't remembered. But I used to walk around going, "She called me a twit-up. What is a twit-up?" And I still find that funny. I do. It's still funny that he doesn't know what a twerp is, but he thinks the word is hilarious.
I love that phone bit when Dave actually ends up calling
That
back,
phone, but it's funny.
where she's like, "Can I speak to the boys?" Sure.
I
And like the
I don't see why not.
yeah, just back and forth is like, "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, everything's great."
You should get some rest, Dave.
Yeah.
Dave was hot, by the way.
Dave is John Hamm, no?
Dave
could see
has like
that.
a
Oh my
Prince
God.
Eric
I'm
from
like,
Little
oh,
Mermaid.
we'll have one movie where nobody's hot, but no, No,
But we're all aligned on this.
I'm sorry. Dave is,
I am
Dave
against
is a
it.
snack.
Dave is
Dave
not
is a
hot.
straight up snack.
His voice is so annoying that he is a stale snack. He is a there's the expiration date on that box is like months old.
Ooh.
He's got a good face, and you can tell he does a lot of squats. Yeah, trim.
What does he do?
man.
Was he just like
He was
like
a record producer, wasn't he?
ambiguously in
he's a-
Europe?
He's
Doing
like a
he's like
manager
on-
or something. He's supposed to be their manager and their producer, but
He
like,
was a record producer originally.
why is he going around the world without them? It doesn't seem like
He needs a fucking break.
Okay,
He wasn't going around the world. He was going around Europe.
right.
I think it was more like, you can't just have one act under your belt, and maybe two, because technically the Chipettes are
Chipettes,
they work under different management, though, I believe. They're from Australia.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I know.
Chipettes were from Australia?
Yes.
Yeah, their
I think
origin
it's in
story in the
TV
show.
Yeah.
Do they have an Australian accent?
Not at
Nope.
all.
No.
Not at all.
But the Australia was very big in the 80s,
Yep.
right?
Also, I always found it weird that people are like, they're children. And I'm like, they're chipmunks. And why does nobody notice?
Yeah.
As I also just remembered that I used to own a set of Chipmunk and Chipette dolls and had all of those clothes that you guys are finding so objectionable. I had all of them.
The thing is, I like the clothes. I like Brittany's
cute.
clothes. They're very 80s, adorable. Eleanor's little like tie and like prep school thing is great.
Their hair is really
I genuinely identified with Jeanette
Yeah.
and her messy
Oh,
bun and two big sweaters. Like I totally get it. But why do we have to see their underwear?
They just did a lot
all
of
the
upskirt
time.
shots.
There were too many upskirt shots. There was too many peaks of white panties, and it was really disturbing.
I was expecting Mariska Hargitay to come out and say
Yes!
this is like
I'm
I
not
was just
gonna
expecting
lie.
her to come in at any point and be like,
You are
"Excuse me,
being- yeah.
gentlemen."
Yeah,
Also, the Snake Charming song,
it's
which
I forgot about that, actually. Yeah.
I had forgotten what song it was. And then I realized as they started playing it that the song is Tell Me How I Get Lucky With You.
Yeah,
That might be a problem.
with
Yes.
snakes. Hello.
Might be problematic.
With long, wriggly snakes.
The double entendres. Clearly,
where they're wearing like harem outfits. Come on.
Yeah, it's I don't know if that's even like coded at that point. That's just text.
that's just text. That's not
just
subtext.
text.
That's not double entendre.
It's-
That's just
the-
straight up entendre.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like it normalized this like over sexualization of children way
That-
too much.
That
you know?
was the 80s, I will say that.
That is true. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that I think it's kind of crazy that how well I think this played, because normally children's fare, and if you've watched any of the other like later Alvin, Chipmunks, straight to home video kind of movies, because they continue to produce all of these, but they are just pale in comparison to this. This actually feels like a well thought out film in the sense that they had a point A to a point B, and they did what they thought was entertaining and fun. All the later ones are very situational, like, oh, I'm gonna go meet the Wolfman, or it's very stuff you would see at 2:00 in the afternoon on Cartoon Network. This film pulled in a lot of performances from amazing actors like Jodie Goodman, who played Miss Miller. You might know her as the secretary Blanche from Grease.
Oh.
And she was also in Mary Tyler Moore's variety comedy show back in the 70s.
Oh yes.
Yeah, both iterations of it. One of them starring Michael Keaton and Joyce Van Patten.
Right. Nice. I gotta say,
Yeah.
you mentioned that phone bit,
Oh yeah,
where her and
that's
Dave are on the
straight out
phone,
of.
which was hilarious, but also why was the soap on her hands so gooey?
Oh yes.
yes.
Eh.
I have
But
a
the water from the pool that like clung to the dog's nose. Why was it like gel water?
It was
and
jelly.
why was the soap gel and just
All
sticking
liquid
to
is
That's
weird.
states of matter were different in Cartoon Land.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Like everything was plasma or solid.
Yes.
The other one I do want to miss, because we didn't bring up Claudia, Susan Tyrell, and I will always know her as Ramona Ricketts from Crybaby. But that's
Ramona
her.
Ricketts.
Yep. She was also Queen Doris in Forbidden Zone. So yeah, there's a lot of this, like, I think adult themes
Yeah.
because of the people they were pulling in.
Which I also think might be part of the reason that I liked it when I was a kid, because it felt like a grown-up movie that was made for me.
I can see that.
I mean,
yeah.
they kind of do that sometimes with cartoons now too, don't they?
Right.
Where they like make it a little
Or they
adulty for the
throw in stuff for the
adults
adult.
because
I feel like this was slightly different in that it felt like the movies that my parents would watch that I sometimes got to sit and watch with them because they'd forget I was in the room. but at the same time, it was made for us. It was made for like an 8-year-old, but it felt like we were watching something we weren't supposed to be watching at the same time. Like they added this extra layer.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was definitely a lot of danger. You know,
mean, they turned the children into drug mules.
Exactly. Again, within the first 10 seconds of this movie, I was like, wait a second, is the premise that they're mules?
Yes.
Yes.
That is the premise. The dolls are so cute. I used to be obsessed with the little dolls.
The dolls are adorable. The dolls that are filled with illicit gems and cash.
At least they didn't make them.
They're being chased by what you think are other gangsters.
Yeah, but
are not. I guess.
Spoiler alert. But how does this not just eventually equal out? Because it seems like they gave one of the sets of dolls.
Yeah, they're just handing
money, and the other set of dolls have diamonds.
Right.
And then when they drop off,
they're
the diamonds,
exchanging
they get money, and then when they drop off the money, they get diamonds. So aren't they just like balancing out eventually? Like, why are they still?
There's no
like,
profit
There's
at
no
the end.
profit at the end.
Well, also the logistics that it would have taken to put this together. The sheer
who's putting the doll?
Project managing this.
Who's putting the doll under the sombrero hat? What is this international network of money launderers?
Network of international diamond thieves.
If it's so easy to get the dolls, like the matchy dolls with the money to people, why don't they just use that transportation system to send the diamonds?
Yeah.
Yes, this is more fun.
Yeah, I figured this is like a big exercise, and like, guys, we normally do it the old boring way. Hey, let's have a scavenger hunt. I'm gonna bring these kids, and everybody's like, yeah, that's cool. Like the guy who keeps his money in the doll in a wrecked ship under the water.
Where they're like flipping through books.
It's a mad world is what this was.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which there's nothing wrong with that. It's a mad world. It's a great movie.
Great movie.
Sure. But it is adult movie for adults.
It's an adult movie. Yeah, exactly.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's like a live action cartoon.
But yeah, but also the incestuous siblings. That definitely felt like
we
almost
talk
like
about
Cool
Klaus and
World.
Claudia. Klaus and Claudia are messed up.
They
And
are.
Yeah.
It was like Cool World. It was like we're in some kind of weird underbelly where like I don't know what's going on here.
Although one of my favorite parts of the movie that I had forgotten about is Klaus's constant battle with Sophie, the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is funny. And Sophie is so cute, especially the point where she flicks out her switchblade nail and pops his floaty thing. That was a nice little kid meets disgusting adult touch.
Yeah. And I do appreciate this because without those, like, it really is their show to steal. Like the Chipmunks there, when I was watching this as a kid, I was there for the Chipmunks because that's who I identified with. But now watching this is like every time I'm just waiting for Klaus and Claudia to come back on screen.
Well, and that's part of the reason I was so upset when I realized that the YouTube video wasn't complete, because most of what was cut was Klaus and Claudia.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's the part I need you guys to see. The horrible incestuous siblings. They're amazing.
What were they doing? Planning crime at a children's arcade?
In a pizza parlor.
In a pizza parlor. What? Drinking like tiny little demi-tasses of
at like
espresso
a tiny little coffees and smoking like a chimney. Why is there smoking in a
It's the
fridge?
They're
80s.
still smoking.
the
It was the 80s and smoking was
Oh my
everywhere.
God.
We used to have smoking at the restaurant until like
I
late
know.
90s.
Remember when you could smoke on an airplane?
Yeah, I
You
do.
may smoke at
because
McDonald's.
You would fly to Greece and there would be smoking on that flight.
I don't know
the
if you
entire
know
way.
Greeks really like to smoke
Yeah.
at the airports now. Now they have little like
Smoking
kiosks,
booths.
smoking
Oh, yeah.
booths. Like it is literally filled with opaque smoke in there. You walk
Yeah.
by and it looks like a joke from a cartoon.
My
you know?
grandfather used to say, because he would fly around back in the 60s at the height of like when he would go to Tokyo, and he said the only way you could see if like one of the little bars was crowded is you'd actually have to crouch below the smoke line and count the feet because it was so thick in there, because all the Japanese business guys would just be in there drinking and smoking like just constantly. Like I had to point that out to somebody a little while ago. It was like, yeah, the armrests on your plane had little ashtrays.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they were like, that's horrible. And I'm like, yeah, it really was.
So just to recap, people smoked on airplanes and Chipettes were sexualized in the 80s. And we just have to accept that.
Yeah.
I think everything
That's
was
it.
a little sexualized in the
Everything
80s.
was sexualized
Oh, absolutely.
in the 80s.
And European siblings were like Appalachia.
I almost mentioned the fact that this is also the same year that Flowers in the Attic movie came out.
Fair.
You got very,
that is
totally.
very Flowers in the Attic.
Also, this year had the release of a Garbage Pail Kid movie,
I remember that.
which in comparison to this, which is an act of just pure passion and desire to make this movie to that horrible cash grab.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's the other reason. Like, I should preface this by saying I did not expect to still have such an affection for this movie. I brought it up because I remembered how offensive it was. And I wanted you guys to be able to see that level. So we'd have something fun to talk about. But I genuinely still love this movie. And I think I genuinely still love it because you can tell it was kind of a labor of love. Like, regardless of whether it works or not, which it probably doesn't, you could tell that the people involved with it loved these characters and loved this kind of storytelling.
Yeah. Like, as far as a film goes, it's no worse off than a, adventure film that you would see for children. Considering they had to like axe whole sections of it to make it fit, I'm surprised at how well it flows. Like it goes from song to song. You get to see like highlights of the places that they're visiting. You get the jokes in there. The offensive parts of it, I think, are just due to the fact that, these people probably just had no care about researching anything beyond what their vision.
It was so broad. It's such broad comedy. It's like the lowest common.
Well, having a sheik in Egypt, I'm like, that's not even accurately offensive.
Yeah, it's
Come on.
Yeah, it was broad strokes on a small canvas.
Broad strokes for a 7 to 8 year old audience who weren't going to be able to grasp the nuance of, well, this person may be from this country, but that doesn't mean that they aren't just like everybody else. Because you have to do you're on screen for 20 seconds. What's the thing that identifies you? And in the 80s, it was go for the most easy stereotype that you can possibly think of.
Oh, and it's there. I mean, I started twinging when my memories of them going to Mexico City first kick in, and
there's like banditos. It's like very much like,
I mean, there's the guy with the gold tooth. That is still
and the dude on horseback shooting into the air. Funsies.
But I remembered it being like Three Caballeros bad, where it was like every single person.
When was Three Caballeros? That was like 2 decades earlier.
Yeah.
It was, but it was playing in Disney World as
recently as like 2010 or something.
Contextually, like it has 2 decades more of offensiveness stacked on top of it. Like, supposedly we should have progressed somewhere in the 80s, right?
But I'm saying, like, I don't think, because this is such a personal film made by such a small group of people, this is really more, I don't want to say like a lack of desire to do it. I think they just went with the easiest thing that they projected. So this is more of a reflection on their view of something that they wanted to show to these characters.
I don't know if it's because you guys have such affection to it, but to me, it just seemed very gimmicky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I
get that.
I mean,
hey, look at them stuffing these dolls.
Like,
with money.
It's very high concept.
We can sell these dolls for you now too. Exactly. Like I always kind of had that feeling about the Chipmunks. Like I totally bought into it because I thought they were adorable and it was really fun to sing along. But it was always a gimmick, right? It's like pop songs sped up a little so that they sound high pitched and funny. And that gimmick I never got out of my brain. It was always kind of like, oh, this is a way to say it's a shtick. It's a, this is how they sell albums. This is how they sell toys. This is how they sell whatever, it always was a.
Well, to be fair, they are incredibly
like right now. I'm
careful.
Just thinking if they're still involved in the movies, how rich are these fucking people? Like they must be pulling in the royalties.
Yeah, they're probably pretty well off. They also, like they said, the reason why they are still involved in this is because they are very, very in control of this property. They do not let anybody.
I bet they're micromanaging assholes.
I don't know about that, but I do know that they have been involved in basically every iteration of the Chipmunks since the late 70s.
Yeah.
And I think they really do love this creation of theirs because it's his dad's child, and they've actually referred to it in interviews as these are our children. And so they treat the Chipmunks like children. Whereas normally you would say
somebody needs to call protective services,
right? Normally you would say, when the analogy was made recently, like when George Lucas sold Lucasfilm, he was like, now the kid's gone off to college and he's going to make his own mistakes. They were never like, the Chipmunks have never been out of the house.
Right.
They're like those kids from
Flowers
that
in
movie.
the Attic.
Yeah.
They're
helicopter parents.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I do really appreciate the singular vision it takes to be like, this is what we're gonna do forever.
And to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Do they have kids?
Yes, they do.
Is there a Desarian the Third.
Yes, they do have.
Is any of them named after the Chipmunks? Because that is some flowers in the attic shit.
No, they do not. Yeah, they have 2 kids, Monticello and California.
Oh
no, they live in Monticello, California. Sorry.
Okay.
They don't list their children's name, which is probably wise.
That would have been a great thing, but I love that joke. Like, even if it wasn't,
That's like the Back to the Future 3, where it's like, this is Jules and Vern. It's like, the other thing I did want to mention about this is the score by Randy Edelman, which starts off the whole movie, which is that great bombastic classic score recorded by the Royal London Philharmonic Orchestra.
Bryce's face is like,
I'm giving
Bryce and I have been
cares like facial and gesture. I'm like, who's listening to the score and the album?
The score is great.
This is a good, like, the movie has a good soundtrack, guys. I'm sorry.
Guys, I understand that you were little baby ducklings and this movie is your mama. But honestly,
I will fight you on this. These songs stand up.
So on my Zoom screen, Randall and Dana are here. And me and Helen and Alex are here, and it is like this perfect divider for people who have ranked the Chipmunk Kool-Aid, and people who are like,
I feel like
the songs are still good. No. If I went into a recording studio with my band and re-recorded half the songs from this movie, you would think they were good songs.
Challenge accepted. A challenge put out. I
will do it.
I want you to record a Chipmunks cover album, please.
I mean, that's all the Chipmunks ever did was cover stuff.
Slow down and like maudlin.
But it's like a cover of a
that's so meta. Covers of covers.
I want half of them to be slowed down
but
and
not all
very soulful.
Like maudlin. Just like.
And I want you to wear like.
Just chop and screw everything.
I want you to wear a bright red Snuggie.
Oh my God.
No, that's a step too far.
That would be amazing.
Like a cutout for your underwear because we need the best of both worlds there.
I'll dress like Britney. I'll full on dress like Britney.
You could pull off Britney, definitely, 100%.
Like if you listen to like the song they sing to the penguin, that is a really lovely little ballad.
The song that they sang to the penguin was very, very sweet. I have to admit that I was terrified the entire time that she would start nursing it, like pull out a boob and start nursing it.
A little baby penguin, and she was
but she's like holding it a little too tight.
And I'm like, oh my God, the penguins have built a civilization. Like, why are some animals anthropomorphized and people and some animals are animals? Like, how does this work?
That's every cartoon. Pluto versus Goofy. It's the eternal struggle.
The reason I bring that up is because the way that this film sets it up, it is not what you would normally get in, again, what is considered pretty light candy fare for children. He's composed things for like Last of the Mohicans. He did While You Were Sleeping, Shanghai Noon. Things that have a lot of energy, bombast, action oriented. And to have that kind of weight to it, it also makes it feel like a real movie.
Something else I forgot to bring up, the music was very entertaining. I'm going to tell you that. I didn't sit in my brain the way it sat in your brain very clearly, but entertaining. Our dad loved it. Every second of this movie.
Nice.
Was entranced, wide-eyed.
He also has dementia.
Eyes glued to the screen. When there was the broad slapstick comedy, he was laughing his ass off.
And I think that sums it up because it's the same kind of
advanced onset dementia.
But as a kid, there's only a certain amount of work you need put into something to find it entertaining, and they put that amount of work.
So basically, for those people who don't have advanced critical thinking skills, this movie is perfect.
When you were a kid, Bryce. When you were a kid. Although I will say that the cover of Bully Bully, really offensive. Not great.
Also, why are they referencing David Bowie in a Chipmunks movie?
That's a stretch. I mean, Diamond Dolls.
No, I actually, I was sitting there Google searching, was Diamond Dolls supposed to be a David Bowie song? It was not.
I saw that they had referenced in the credits the songs Come On to My House and Witch Doctor, but they're not really featured in there, and they're not on the soundtrack.
The one woman is singing Come to My House.
Miss Miller is singing Come On to My House, and she also is singing Witch Doctor. Mm-hmm. And those are both the first two hits that the original
That
Chipmunks.
and the Christmas
I
song.
see.
Because come on to my house, I'm going to give you candy is not metaphorical at all.
No, that was written by the senior
right.
Ross
But I'm saying like
Bagdasarian.
the lyrics themselves. Come on over to my house because I'm going to give you candy.
The Chipmunks used to record covers of really grown-up songs. They did. That was what they did. But that's how I learned those songs. I didn't know that Arthur's theme song wasn't sung by Alvin and the Chipmunks until I was like 13 years old.
Okay, that's a weird cover.
Here's the right column of righteousness, of being right, of not.
No, you should look it up. There's a whole thing at the end where they talk about how they want to go to New York. It's very cute.
The left column of weird.
Ours is up.
I'm sorry, I was a big Chipmunks fan, but I don't even remember being that big a Chipmunks fan, but clearly
Neither did I.
Clearly you were.
Neither did I. I am sitting here going like, oh, I kind of remember this. And then it all just flooded back. It was
comes back.
weird
Yep.
as
Yeah, I
thing.
think you Manchurian Candidate. I think you might be like high on endorphins or something. Like this definitely
like it.
clicked off some brain chemistry where the nostalgia is like kicking in some like super strong brain
That's
chemistry.
exactly what it brings you back to how you felt when you watched that movie when you were 7 years old. And I liked that movie when I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
I don't remember having that deep of feelings when I was 7.
I had some inappropriate feelings about Jeanette.
What did I watch when I was 7? Was it like Beauty and the Beast? I mean, I do really love Beauty and the Beast, but
yeah, but I think
it might be Lady and the Tramp. I think ours might be Lady and the Tramp.
I feel like Randall and I attach to movies in a different way than you guys do.
Yeah,
like it's part of our beings.
I definitely attach to different movies than you do.
Yeah, I mean,
Fair
you guys
enough, fair
felt about Romeo and Juliet in a very different way than I did.
Yeah, I mean. At any point, if we ever watch Willow, I'm gonna be like,
Willow still freaks me out.
No, I'm gonna have like my
Willow freaks you out.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh, see, but I had this kind of reaction about Return to Oz, where I'm like, no, this movie is so perfect because even as a little 7-year-old, I was still the gothy little girl that I am today.
Exactly, but I think that proves the point. Like it's a different kind of movie for everybody, but Randall and I align on this.
Sexualized children, and I like.
Think about what you're defending.
Stop calling them children.
They're chipmunks.
They are children.
I could sexualize a chipmunk.
So it's not
all I
child
want.
pornography; it's bestiality.
No, it's
way better.
There is no sex. Thank you very much.
I said sexualized.
If I
called
called
it
Rufus
porn.
in an outfit, how would you feel?
I'm just saying, between this and Gadget from Rescue Rangers, I'm surprised.
Gadget was a grown adult. She was a consensual adult.
No, I'm just saying, just from the anthropomorphized versions of things, I'm surprised I'm not a furry at this point.
I mean, he has encouraged me to wear my kitty cat onesie.
And you guys are all lying to yourselves if you didn't think Robin Hood was hot.
No, Robin Hood was like one of my earliest crushes, but he was an adult fox. Did not.
I mean, what that really says is that there wasn't a ton of representation of children cartoon animals. It was all adults. This was supposed to align with us.
Yes. Yeah.
I did want to actually mention real quick because I forgot to say this, but so Janice Carmen, who ended up directing this and is the voice of the Chipettes and also for Theodore in this movie, she voices Theodore. I did not realize this, but she was Bunny from Switchblade Sisters. And if you've ever seen that exploitation film back in the 70s,
I haven't.
Oh man. And I did not realize and make that connection until looking this up. I'm like, holy crap. There's so much like just seedy underground film just bubbling up through this.
A lot to unpack.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like maybe this is not sexualized to somebody who's just like grew up with that Corman-esque, you know.
I could see that if there's that general vibe, you know, like this is just...
I do feel like when you're 7, 8 years old, you're not looking at the Chipettes as sexy. That's not what's happening. It's, I mean, maybe Randall did, but it's not about that.
It awakened things in me.
But I mean, but it still gets into your head. Like blah, 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 third wave feminism, socialization theory. It still gets into your head that this is what you're supposed to be like and act like.
That's how you're supposed to act. Like the way
Eleanor was not sexualized. It's really just Brittany.
Eleanor was sexualized.
Eleanor was slashing panties the whole
harem
time.
costume.
Eleanor
like in the balloon. Her like skirt rode up, slash panties.
And she's doing like kissy face. She's doing like this pouty like kissy face.
when I see the skirts fly up, I get what you guys are saying, but I really connected it more as like when you're 7, 8 years old, you just don't care as much when your skirt flies up over your head. You don't think about it because you're running around doing things.
Wait, but it wasn't like a tomboy where, you know, like having fun and like
they were made up.
No, I know
like,
they're
they were made up. They were like pink lipped, rosy, like it was all a very kind of like
John Benet Ramsey.
John Benet Ramsey, like a very like passionately pouty, like
I can't believe I'm arguing this hard about the Chipettes, but I think you guys are making an association that isn't there. Like they weren't beauty pageant.
I'm saying
the thing is, it's like setting it up. An adult man made this film. Exactly.
Let's
she's
I just
Janice Carmen directed this.
Same time period. The Smurfs. Smurfette is the only female character you've got.
I have a huge problem with that too.
I do too. But this is what I'm saying. Hold on. If Smurfette is compared to Brittany, at least Brittany has agency. That chick is in charge of herself. She wants something, she goes out and gets it. She doesn't wait for everybody to come rescue her. She is equal to Alvin. She is just as badass a rock star. So if she's a little bit made up, okay, I understand why you're offended.
Also, like,
she was not a bad role model. She wasn't.
And that's fine. Like, I agree with that, but I can also say this is the kind of imagery, and not just with the Chipettes, but with Smurfette and with like 1,000 other things that you're feeding young girls.
Yes, exactly.
Change the way that they feel like they have to present themselves to the world.
They have to like pose. They have to like be cute. They have to be like attractive. They have to be like,
they have to use every filter on Instagram.
Yeah.
With the Chipettes, if you take the chipmunk film genre as a whole, Eleanor and Jeanette were not sexualized. They were nerdy.
They were
the female.
They had the surface. They had the surface kind of like gloss of this is the nerdy one. This is the chubby one. But they were still sexualized in that label
in the movie.
Nerdiness.
Like if you watch it as a whole, they were not.
Yeah, they don't look like this in the show.
Sure, they were fetishized.
But
they were 100%
fetishized into a fetish. That is not what Brittany. I understand. Brittany was obviously supposed
I'm going to send you screenshots. Honestly, there were points where like Eleanor, I'm like, why is Eleanor being so like
right? But I'm saying not
nerdy and pouty.
I'm talking about the show as a whole. When they brought the Chipettes in, Brittany 100%. She was supposed to be like the precocious one who was overly like she's the cheerleader you see in high school.
Yeah.
But the other two were supposed to be like bookwormish, kind of introverted.
I know, but that's why it kind of like stands out even more when
I don't remember
when you get like Jeanette being like she's supposed to be the bookish one, but she still like lounges like the rest of them do in these like very provocative poses. It becomes like, oh, this is the nerdy sexy girl and this is the feeder sexy girl. Like the baseline is always the sexy girl, you know.
I've been watching a lot of Sesame Street lately because I have like a 15-month-old niece, and I look at Abby Cadabby, and Abby Cadabby is very feminine. Like she has the frou-frou skirt, she has the hair and the magic, and she's very pink, but she is not sexualized at all. Like, she acts and looks like a little girl. Yeah. And she has agency. And I'm just like, just comparing the two presentations of femininity that you shove on little girls, I'm really like troubled by this.
And also, why do you need to shove femininity on a girl?
And I think the way that I'm looking at it is I was in that audience. I was 7, 8 years old. So I was their target demo. It didn't turn me into a super sexualized creature. I was a tomboy. I remained a tomboy. I liked them because they were rock stars and they were cool and their outfits were pretty. But I didn't ever think I need to show boys my underpants after watching this movie. No. That never would have. And I understand with some of the other things that were happening around that time. Yes, on a subconscious level, you're being fed the message that sex is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But I don't get that from this movie. I think you guys are reading more into it than there is, except the snake dance, which 100%
that
totally inappropriate.
Like, you can't, like, all of us, we put a lot of value in makeup. Yeah. Me included, a lot of value in appearance and how our clothes look and how we define ourselves by how other people see us. And I'm not saying that any one thing did that, but the message to young girls that appearance is super, super, super important, and especially sexualized appearance is super, super, super important. I don't think you can get away from it, but I also don't think you can blame it and hang it on one thing. I think, how many shoes do you own that aren't comfortable? How many like push-up bras do you own that aren't comfortable? How many times have you spent a ton of money lightening your hair, doing your hair, because we're taught how important appearances. And I'm not saying that it's not something that we're doing for ourselves, but that primary focused on appearance is something that's pushed on little girls.
And being an adult and being out of that situation where
But
you're
still
not
into
as
it, 'cause
impressionable, I can recognize it.
Yeah.
Like that's like you see it and you're like, oh shit, like that's why there's so much pressure on young girls to like look a certain way, you know?
I come at it from a different angle because I did not buy into any of that pressure until I was in my late 20s. Helen and Alex knew me when I was in my early like college years. I didn't wear makeup in college. I wore overalls all the time.
Did you shave your legs? Did you shave your armpits?
Yeah, but that again is more for me than it was. Like when I wear platform shoes, it's not to fool everybody else into thinking I'm 5'6". It's because I like being a little bit taller.
Right.
So you like being a little bit taller because you don't feel comfortable.
I like being a little bit taller so I can reach things, Helen.
Sure, okay.
But just because it didn't affect you doesn't mean it didn't affect
No,
other
I understand that, but I'm also arguing that I feel like there's so much put on what came out around that time. And it maybe didn't have quite as bad an effect, something like this movie, as you guys might be perceiving it from a 20.
I gotta say, I'm very happy that your niece Bryce is growing up with Abby Kadabi rather than Brittany.
Well, and I want to tell her how cute she is all the time, and I have to be like, don't like all compliments.
I know.
Appearance based.
Because
Like
it does affect you. Like I was an overweight kid and I constantly got told I was overweight. Even though when you look at pictures of me as a little kid,
normal size.
I was normal sized.
Yeah.
But I was still considered overweight. So
She had like round cheeks, you know?
round cheeks. So it like really fed into my
body image
and
problems,
problems. And so like that meant I was like, well, I'm overweight. So that means I must eat like I'm overweight. So then I just grew into that literally.
Yeah.
And it's a problem. Like, even though if you're saying something small, like, yeah, it might not affect every kid, but it could affect some kid.
Yeah.
You know?
it's a societal problem. It's not an individual problem.
But I would also,
It is a
Yeah.
societal problem. And what we're recognizing, Dana, is this being a little piece of that entire societal
no, I
problem.
understand
you
that,
know?
but I don't have a problem telling a little girl that she's cute and smart and
Sure.
and fun and wacky. I want to be told all of those things, and I feel like by saying you can't have a little girl wearing cute clothes.
No, you could absolutely have a cute, but should cuteness be your primary function as a little girl?
No, and I don't think that's kind of my point about the Chipettes is that cuteness is not their primary state of being. They're
But also,
badass little Chipmunks.
You're gorgeous. Like you're beautiful. Even in your overalls, you were still like a societally beautiful person.
No, I wasn't.
I'm pretty sure we could like put pictures on the Instagram feed and be like,
we can.
You were a
We'll prove my point.
you were a beautiful person, and it's really easy to say this didn't affect me, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day you're going to be rewarded by society for being beautiful.
I was not rewarded by society for being beautiful when I was in high school, when I was in middle school. I wasn't. I was chubby. I was, like I said, a tomboy. Like I wasn't that person. And I didn't take that message from movies. And I understand not every little girl is going to be like that. But I do feel like it's going a little bit far to say that we can't say the words to a child, you're pretty. You can if you follow it up with that's not the only thing you are. You're smart.
Well, I like to start it with something else and then follow it up with you're pretty.
Exactly. So in that vein, I feel like it is okay to enjoy a movie like The Chipmunk Adventure, even with its problematic pieces, as long as you put it into the context of this is just one thing. And you need to understand that the Chipettes are not just their little cute outfits and harem pants. That's not all they are. And put it into context like that. I think it's not as evil as you guys are looking at it as.
I would not recommend this to any kid today.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
but in the 80s,
sure.
I think in context, it's not that bad.
I'm super glad you enjoyed it. I remember watching it several times. I don't necessarily enjoy it now. And it did not stick with me as much as it did you.
Well, yeah, and I've definitely acknowledged and accepted that this is because 95% of this is because I have such nostalgia for this movie.
Right.
But I do think because that nostalgia is there, I can look at it from a different perspective.
Absolutely. And I think what you're saying is really valid, but I like from a bigger picture level, I do find it contributing to problematic behaviors.
Yeah.
And poor Randall is like,
Well, no, I'm actually
like Star
enjoying
Wars.
this. It's just, well, Star Wars is its own can of worms.
Yeah.
So going through, the fandom, the Alvin fandom online, which is a huge resource, many entries deep.
The Alvin fandom.
Oh yeah, it's a wiki that has the entire history of the band, the characters to date. So Janice Carmen created the Chipettes before they were even animated. Janice, with her husband, created this as a response to like doing the albums because they just didn't want to be limited by male singers. It wasn't until they got to the animated show, then they created this whole like weird backstory where they're from Australia. I think, because Australia was really popular back then. Their first appearance was on the television series, but that was after they had already been on an album. They've had subsequent albums. They are actually co-listed. They changed the actual show after the movie. I think it was like 88 or so like that, where they changed it so that it included the Chipmunks and the Chipettes. And I think Janice, when she created these kind of things, it's like, again, I think it's more reflective of somebody who grew up in a different mindset, thinking what they're wanting for children. And just going through like the gallery of this, it's like, their television personas are very different from the movie. The movie almost has like cheesecake kind of quality to it.
Yeah.
what it was. Yes.
Very cheesecake. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially like the over-exaggerated movements and things like that. The more representational of their traditional look is when they're doing like all the photos from the movie, when they're like, oh, the Leaning Tower of Pisa and doing all that stuff. So I think maybe it's just like because of the exaggeration in the movements of the way that it's animated, it can be way more suggestive than it possibly, ever conceived of at the show, because the show is like I said, a very, very cheap product. Well, it had to be to churn it out that many times for like nearly a decade.
Not to open up the same cans of worms that we've been just arguing about. One assumes that the movie version is the idealized version of all these characters. Like, these are the characters that they invest money in. These are the characters that they wish they could have all the time. Where the show version is the cheap, this is what we can afford on a regular.
Except for when they survive the hurricane, when they have those gorgeous watercolor blowouts of their hair.
Those were hilarious.
Also, you didn't miss anything. They just never included that. There's a line that Simon says as they're flying apart, and this is, you have to avoid the hurricane. They're like, yeah, whatever. And then they wake up and they're on the shore.
On the shore, yeah.
So,
there's no hurricane scene.
Yeah,
Randall was panicked that we missed a whole sequence.
Well, that's actually when I realized that I didn't have the entire movie in front of me. It was when I went from Alvin doing the phone call with Dave to fake him out to Mexico. And the first thought I had was, wait, how did they learn how to fly the air balloons? How did that happen? And I realized that I was missing like a large chunk of movie. And then I went back to the French version because that's the only full version available anywhere. And why it's available in France is beyond me.
I think there was also a Spanish dub that we came across on YouTube. Yeah.
I couldn't find that one.
You fill in a lot of blanks. It seems like even if you are watching the movie straight through, you have to fill in a lot of blanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's, like I said, they had to cut things, and the patchwork that they managed to do and still get this as a coherent film is pretty impressive. I do want to say that in the new movies, there was a whole, like, they're basically rats.
Yeah, they look really weird.
Yeah, the CGI versions.
Yeah.
I am a grown-ass adult. I've never seen them.
Oh, really?
And Justin Long as Dave is not the same as cartoon.
No.
He's Jason Lee as Dave.
Jason Lee.
I keep saying Justin Long. I don't know why I keep doing that.
Oh, Justin Long
he's a
actually
voice in
is
the
the
movie.
voice.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Because, he's got that going for him.
My parents have chipmunks living underneath their porch, and they look nothing like the chipmunks. No, they look like Chip and Dale. They look real cute. And
If they don't play
cute
the
little
part of
butts.
the singer.
They do have cute little butts. Maybe that's why we see their underwear all the time.
Your butts.
Yeah, see,
When
there you go.
When they go into the holes, they go into the chipmunk holes. It's really adorable. They just like
And then
pop
they
in and pop
stuff
out.
their mouth full of like 5 times the amount of food that
They
they
really
ever need.
do. Yeah,
It's
all the
Igor and
acorns.
his couscous.
It's couscous, yes.
I actually thought we wouldn't have that much to say, but then apparently we went on like a third wave feminism.
I told you
This
guys.
awakened a lot of feelings
Yeah.
on both sides of the spectrum.
I told you it would be a good discussion. I
I-
told you.
I will say Are we going to go into how we feel about this movie?
Yes, please.
Yeah, since there's absolutely no chance that this will ever be remade because they still control this, I don't think there's any reason to even
like remake the storyline as well?
No, it doesn't make any sense.
Not at all.
Again, they've redone this over and over and over again. They just keep remaking.
I feel like this movie
stories.
can just be summed up in one Wikipedia article, and it's fine just reading that Wikipedia article with some photos. Sure.
Yeah.
And I have a point of order. I recommend that anyone that loved this movie as a child go back and watch it again because it will touch the same pleasure center as like any other illicit drug you can find. But I do not think it is appropriate for anyone that didn't watch it between the ages of 7 and 12 for the first time.
Yeah, fair enough. Yes,
fair enough. Yeah. If you want to see plenty of images, go to Monkipedia.
Oh my God. My summation of this movie is it was not worth all the trouble we took to like string it together in YouTube clips. Not worth it. Absolutely.
I kind of enjoyed it.
It was like our own adventure. We got to make our own adventure.
It did feel like a choose your own adventure kind of thing. Yeah, totally. It was around like, what are we missing? Did I open the door with the troll behind it? What's going on? I would be very afraid for like anybody who watched this and then like ends up getting trafficked or something. Like I feel like there's just a lot of weird insinuations underneath the surface of it. Like I would not be surprised if this was like a brainwashing video shown to children to like indoctrinate them into a cult.
They got a trip around the world.
Don't show this. You know what I'm going to say? Don't show this video to QAnon. Don't show this video to QAnon because they will go apeshit.
Yeah. If somebody gives me adorable little chipmunk dolls full of diamonds and money and a hot air balloon and an all expenses paid 30-day trip around the world, I am taking it.
Also, the possibility to win $100,000.
Wait, they never established though if the chipmunks were going to get the $100,000.
No, they did.
The chipmunks get $100,000
right
to the winner.
That was $100,000.
No.
That was $1 million.
That was $1 million between those two. Okay. Yeah, and then they were going to give the chipmunks.
Why are we paying more attention to this plot device?
Because I was busy describing all of the missing scenes so that you guys would know how to watch
team
it.
Left column. All right, team left column.
Yeah. I kind of agree with this. It's like I was actually surprised at how much this resonated because I didn't think I was going to get a lot out of this, but it did. Like the little lights blinked on in the back of my eyes, and I started really having a good time with this film.
Freaking apologist for this film.
I liked it.
I'm with you, Randall.
I would not show this to anybody else. I will keep this as a dirty secret that I will just watch.
Wikipedia. Just Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Maybe watch some. They have some playlists where it's like the songs on YouTube that you can watch if you really want to watch the songs.
No. You guys don't have to join, but Randall and I are going to have like.
I'm glad you guys have a happy memory about this.
Streaming of this and the Black Cauldron, and we're just going to go and watch that shit.
You know what one like has that weird vestigial brain happiness for me is The Last Unicorn.
I was about to say The Last Unicorn. Why would that movie make you happy, Ellen?
I don't know. I don't know.
I love the book. I love the story. I
love that movie.
It so
that
much.
movie was so sad.
I know it's like super dark and like sad and like tragic
for life.
But that one, when I watch it, I'm like, oh my God, The Last Unicorn is so beautiful.
Completely same. Like if it makes you cry and
that has like a very inappropriate tree in it.
You know,
like a real
I also read a lot of like cancer porn when I was in middle school. Like about kids who get leukemia or their friends get leukemia. Like I really wanted to feel sad when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I didn't want to feel happy. Happy's for suckers.
We just established two very different sets of children, very different sets of adults.
The right team right column, the weird ass team left column.
Yeah. Oh man. I know I have to end this on a Chipmunk song. I just don't know which one. Fuck it. I'm gonna do a Chipettes song.
Give it the Chipmunks Arthur's theme song because I've mentioned it so many times.
I'm gonna go back to my DeviantArt scrolling for Jeanette photos.
Oh my God, I don't want to know what Jeanette has turned into on the dark web. As long as it's not the song they sang in Polynesia.
Oh no.
No Wooly Bully.
You missed the whole part when like Theodore is the new
didn't
king.
miss it. I saw it.
Oh yeah.
I'm okay.
That one's the fun part where he's just like, oh yeah, by the way, they're just gonna. It's literally what they recreated in Dead Man's Chest.
Yeah.
With Johnny Depp.
They were also just like feeding him all the time just
to get him
make him more appetizing for the crocodiles.
Yeah,
no one is arguing. No one is arguing that piece of it is not insanely racist. That piece of it is insanely racist and offensive and horrible.
Yeah, that's pretty.
No one's arguing that fact.
Also, I figured I should mention this because the man is a goddamn legend. So Frank Welker, who has been a voice actor, he's the original Fred Jones from Scooby-Doo. Yeah, he's been around the block for over 60 years doing this, and he's still going strong. He played so many of these side voices, including the offensive ones, but most importantly, as Sophie. So it's just nice that they managed to work in Frank Welker, showing that, again, I think this was really just something that they loved, and it was a family trying to make something really weird with a lot of their friends. It's not something I would recommend to people. But
One thing I will say, I for some reason found it adorable every time a chipmunk gasped. that like little high pitched like noise. I found super adorable. Yeah. I don't know why. It was like a hiccup. It was really really cute. It just made me really want actual chipmunks. Yeah, chipmunks are adorable. In Greece, they actually have them as pets. Yeah, instead of hamsters, you buy chipmunks. Yeah, isn't that weird? That's weird.
Well, and we're talking about trafficking everywhere else. They're trafficking chipmunks in Greece.
They sure are. Christmas time is here. Time for journey.
What words are you singing?
I don't know. I forgot them halfway through.
Alvin, this is a very romantic song, so just sing the right words, okay?